Hi, Arturo and Silvia Escobar with Escobar Homes and Family and Keller Williams. And as you know, we are realtors. And today we are specifically talking about the equity of your home. As you know, we do these workshops once in a while to be able to give information that helps you to have the information you need to make the decisions that are best for you and your family. And today we have with us Karth Barr from Fairway. He is one of the loan officers that we work with, and he is specifically an expert on financial education. He does financial education, and today he's going to be sharing not only the financial education piece, but also information on what we can do with the equity of our homes. Sometimes we think that the only time that we are able to take advantage of the equity is when we sell our home, but that's not the only way that we can take advantage of the equity of our home, and we're going to be talking about that today. So, would you like to share?
Yes, I want to share that it's an honor to have you here with us. And we have known you for a while. We know that you're a person of integrity. We share some values that are important to you and to us, and that means a lot to us. The values of respect, honoring, and servicing our clientele. So that's very important for us, and that's why it's very good to have you here today.
Well, and I just want to say thank you for having me on, and absolutely is why I love working with you, Arturo, and Silvia, because our values do align, and it's about education first, and that's a lot of what I have done to develop my name. And Sean, I'm going to ask you a couple real specific questions, but I do focus on that financial education, how to use your home or incorporate your home as part of that wealth building plan. And hopefully, Sean, we can give you a few nuggets that maybe you didn't have prior to coming on. So again, Arturo and Silvia, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate the confidence that you guys have, and Sean, this is for you, because you're the one and only here. So one thing that we want to do is let you know, Sean, we're here to answer questions very specifically that may have come up in your scenario. And the advantage that you have is you've got the entire floor for us. So this is about you, Sean. But
thank you.
Yeah. Now, Sean, how long have you owned your home?
For 3 years now.
Okay. So you bought your home at a very good time, and over the last 3 years, you've seen this market explode, right?
Correct.
Now, let me ask you a couple, and before we get into like the financial slides, are you looking at investing in more property? Are you looking at using your equity to get back on track from a financial perspective? What's your goal? So the three of us can make sure that we're getting you answers that you're looking for.
Yeah, actually, me and Evelyn spoke about coming to sit down with Mr. Arturo again, because we're looking into owning rental properties.
Okay.
But we don't, but we are kind of like a novice in should I call it the business.
Okay.
So we wanted to know how to go about it. What are the do's and don'ts, and the pros and cons of the business? So we were trying to come sit with him, get more enlightenment, and then go back and sit down on it.
Okay.
Before we now take a big step in buying one.
Okay. Well, that's awesome, because I want to focus on that little part of kind of the financial education that we can give you.
Okay.
So Sean, number one is when you buy
Yes.
an investment property over an owner occupied residence, which is what you guys have now. When you bought that owner occupied residence, how much money did you put down, or just in general, like what did you put 5% down? Did you put 3%?
I think it was like 5%.
Okay, okay. So it was a little bit of a smaller down payment from a percentage.
Correct.
Now you're going to be very probably pleasantly surprised how much your home has appreciated over the last 3 years because of the craziness in the market that we've seen, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But the one big difference about buying an owner occupied or a primary residence over an investment property is the down payment requirement that is needed. Okay. For example, buying an investment property typically requires either 20% or 25% as a down payment, as opposed to when you buy that owner occupied residence where those residences you can purchase for putting 5% or 10% or smaller down payments. Okay.
Oh,
So now, the reason I start with that is when we look at, and you've probably heard the concept is leveraging other people's money to purchase and get ahead with real estate. What you can do is look at utilizing the equity that you've built in your house today to be that down payment for that investment property purchase.
okay.
Are you following me? I mean, and again, this is real kind of bird's eye view, but hopefully I'm going to give you a perspective that you can use your current home equity for. Okay. So again, even though that down payment is a much larger requirement, what a lot of people do is leverage their owner occupied residence, especially when they've built a tremendous amount of equity, to secure, let's say, a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan, without even touching the first mortgage or the primary mortgage that you have, because you probably have, if you bought it 3 years ago, have a phenomenal interest rate that is something that we all want to see again someday. But using the equity that you have built to borrow against that portion for that down payment to purchase that first investment property. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have Silvia kind of put up my little financial screen too. So Sean, I want to show you this, and I'm gonna go through it real fast, because if there's any steps that Sean, you may be interested in, let me know, or let Arturo and Silvia know specifically, because I can be a resource for you and kind of dive into a lot more depth of each one of the steps. But because it sounds like you've already taken a lot of the steps because you're a homeowner now. But hopefully I give you some nuggets that if you want to dive into a little bit deeper, I can be a resource for you down the road. Okay.
Okay.
So Sylvia, if you want to go to like slide number 1, or I'm sorry, this is my information, but we'll get you a copy of this so you have my info. So
Okay.
the first thing I always talk about from a financial perspective is establishing an emergency fund, knowing the difference between emergency funding and savings, and really understanding the difference between the two. Sean, one thing that you want to look at in buying that investment property is, what do I have to prepare for from a financial perspective, right?
Yes.
not just being able to put the money down, not being able to get the mortgage, but also what do I need to prepare for in buying that investment? Because buying an investment property is just like buying your owner occupied, where you're gonna see tremendous, very good historical rates of return on that type of investment. Okay.
Okay.
So my little financial program focuses on number one, deciphering that emergency fund versus savings. And that's a real general statement because it depends on whether or not we're buying an owner occupied residence or a property for investment property, because that emergency fund becomes very different. And that savings becomes very different based on what you're actually putting that toward, right?
Right.
Now, if you can go to slide number 2 or step number 2. There's different aspects of this, and Sean, again, I'm giving you a real 30,000-foot view. Establishing a budget when you're buying an investment property is probably one of the most crucial steps, right? You want to make sure you're preparing for it. You're preparing you're preparing for the worst times, but you're hoping for the best of times, if that makes sense.
Yes, it
Is and you know, and I noticed that Gina, you got in too as well. But a budget for an owner-occupied residence or a budget for an investment property, it's so important to define that up front, right? So these are just a couple of the steps that I teach in that budget is making sure we're living within our means or within our bubble. How to master our credit. Do we have anything we need to work on credit? Whether it's buying an owner occupied or an investment property, the better your credit, the better the end result's going to be, right? When I say living, within your means, is that investment property purchase. If we're going to purchase that, and it kind of going back to preparing for the worst, but expecting the best, is we've got to make sure that if we have to carry this, we're really focusing on what do we need to prepare for up front, and how can we utilize that, so that's what I do as far as helping you establish a budget, whether it's a business model or a business plan on investment property, or preparing to purchase that owner occupied residence. I can help you establish that too. Okay. Like we go to the next slide. And this may or may not apply, but debt elimination is a big part of putting yourself in the best position possible. And I can very specifically come up with and help you guys with a plan to get out of debt if there is some of that negative debt that's out there, and really kind of get you guys back on track with focus. And then if you want to go to the next step, after your debt is taken care of, or after that debt that's holding you back is taken care of, then we expand that emergency fund. And again, that's whether or not we have.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay.
I hate when those things happen.
Yeah. And then that expanding the emergency fund, it's whether we're business planning for buying an investment property or whether we're planning for buying that owner occupied, is making sure that after we've got our debt in control, that we're going to finish that very specific plan that's going to be tied to you, right? And then last but not least, on the next step, is step number 5, is once we have that emergency fund or that exact plan set,
Next one.
at this point, it becomes fun. Well, you guys on the call are already homeowners that you can tap and utilize one of the greatest pieces of the asset that you guys have, which is the equity in your current and existing home. For example, is you can use or borrow against the equity that's in your current home today to accomplish some of these budget goals, accomplish some of the debt elimination, accomplish some of the, like Sean, we had talked about in the beginning, is using that equity for that down payment for that investment property. There's a lot of different ways that we can use the equity in your home. And then, Silvia, if we can go to that appreciation number 2. So I put a very basic example together. And by the way, guys, if you're interested in looking at, since you've bought your home, how much your home is appreciated, and what, say, a potential appreciation of that investment would be. But most importantly is, how is my home appreciated from when I bought the house to now, to know how much equity do I have to work with? Okay. So this is an example of somebody purchasing a $400,000 house. I used a very conservative forecasted 3.18% and historical 3.87% appreciation numbers in putting this little example together, to show you the value and the power of what home equity can be as far as that investment that you guys have already purchased. So a $400,000 home, and this is using an example, Sean, very similar to yours, where the down payment was 5%. And what is, after 10 years, what does a 3.18% appreciation look like on a $400,000 home? That's actually an appreciation of about $146,000, which is a pretty awesome appreciation. And there's not a whole lot of investment vehicles that can get you a rate of return, or a return on your investment of almost 700 times your initial investment, right? So the power of equity is huge, utilizing that to acquire more wealth. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, one of the biggest questions that people have is, how do we tap that equity? How do we utilize that equity? Well, there are 3 ways that one can use that equity or tap that equity prior to selling the house. One is doing a cash out refinance. 2 is doing an installment home equity loan. And then number 3 is what's called a HELOC, or a home equity line of credit. Now, option number 1 is a cash out refinance. Probably is not the most advisable way to go, because those that bought their house 3-4 years ago have probably historic low interest rates, and everybody knows that the interest rates are a lot higher, because if you refinance the equity out, you have to refinance to the current interest that is offered on the market today. So that doesn't always become the most advantageous way to tap your equity. The 2 most popular ways right now in today's market, because interest rates are so high, is leave that first mortgage alone and use the equity to take out either an installment home equity loan, and I'll explain the difference between the 2, or take out a home equity line of credit, which is basically a financial vehicle that you only pay back what you use. Okay. Now, Sean and Gina, I see you're on as well, is Sean, you had told me your goal is to be in a position to buy to buy more
A rental property.
Yeah, to buy more property, which a
Yeah.
home equity line of credit may be the best option for you to put in place now to position yourself to purchase that home, that investment property. Now, Gina, how about you? What is your goal or future goal in that you want to explore using your home equity for?
Hello, I'm a real person, not a that was crazy what just happened just now. It was so funny.
Sorry.
But not funny, but um um my goal is I wanted to start with some rental properties with my home equity. I wanted to explore my options to like start with a building of like 3 units.
Okay. Okay.
Even if or I rent out my current home and I don't know. I live in Illinois, so
Okay.
there's I don't know if it's a statewide or I mean a United States thing or with the program where you have to live in the unit for a year before you can.
That's actually not that's actually not a state thing. It's actually a lender guideline is
Yeah.
there's and this I think is before you came on is I explained to Sean there's two types of loans or there's two types of purchases, one being an owner occupied residence, which allows you to put less money down as a primary residence or an owner occupied. Okay.
Mhm.
And in the case where you already own property, you can put as little as 5% down. Okay. When you purchase an investment property, a true investment property that you don't plan on occupying or living in, the banks want you to put a minimum of 20 to 25% down. And it's purely based on the risk of the property. Okay. And that's how guidelines are. So Gina, that's where you got that living in a house for 1 year and then
Yes.
moving out and then turning that into an investment and starting over again and purchasing another property. Okay.
Because right now I live in a house. All my kids just graduated high school, and I don't need this big house anymore.
Yeah.
So I was looking to get some income coming in, and and leave the corporate world is my ultimate goal.
There
And
you
so
go.
I
There
wanted
you
some.
go.
I want to learn. Yeah, I'm ready
Right.
to. I've been 24 years at my job.
Well,
Hold on a second. My
okay.
dogs.
So it sounds like Sean and Gina, you guys both have kind of the similar goals, right? So Sean, going back into that line of credit option is maybe one of the most advantageous for you to really prepare and utilize that. For example, is a home equity line of credit uses the equity that you built in the property. The interest rates and how much of the equity you can use does depend upon your credit and income profile, but that I can get in real, specifics as far as being a resource for you. But in general, what that home equity line of credit does is put you in a position to be able to tap the equity when you find the right property.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask if you could explain to me a little bit about the home equity line of trust?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the way the home equity line of credit works, I like to explain it like a giant credit card that's secured to your home as collateral. Okay. And why is it important when it's secured to your home? Number one, it's usually the interest that you use on that property is tax deductible. Now that I'm not a tax advisor, so you want to make sure you verify that with your tax advisor, but typically that interest is a tax deductible interest. Okay. the reason I say it works like a giant credit card is you put it in place for a credit limit amount. Sometimes you put it in place for 50,000. Sometimes it's for 25,000. Sometimes it's for 100,000. That's the credit limit amount, which would be tied to the amount of equity that you have in your house. Okay. You may only need to use 20,000 of it. So the nice thing about that home equity line of credit is you're only paying back what you use. So let's say you have a $50,000 line of credit, but you only use 20,000. All you're doing is paying back the 20,000 that you borrow. But the other reason I say it works like a giant credit card is as you pay that balance down, you can reuse that line of credit. There's what's called a draw period. Just like a credit card has an expiration, you can reuse the amount of equity that's in that line of credit as you pay the balance down and as your needs grow. Does that make sense, Sean?
Yes, it does. I've heard some people say, so you could, instead of borrowing from your mortgage company, you could open the line of credit and then you could make your income or your paycheck go straight into the line of credit. And then you pay your bills from the equity line of credit.
Okay.
Is that possible?
Well, okay, so that would be a whole nother Zoom call that we would set up. But it is a foreign way to pay off debt because it's a system, and I think it was I actually Sean know exactly what you're talking about, but it's a system that teaches you how to pay less interest to the bank.
Okay.
And it's an Australian process that is not very utilized here. So again, that would probably be another Zoom call that we have, because I can put together a presentation and teach that, but it's very complicated. And if you don't follow the steps, it doesn't really work. And I've seen a lot of people not follow the steps right and get themselves into debt. But I will absolutely teach you that system, because I can show you the basic concepts. One thing that I do is there are very simple ways to pay down debt so you pay less interest. And I'll teach you those simple ways, because that process, that Australian process, is a system. But the concept is paying off debt without paying the banks back a whole lot of interest. And I've got very, very simple ways, Sean, to show you how to pay less interest with the bank. And bottom line is, the faster you accelerate paying off your debt, the less interest you pay to the bank, right?
Yes.
Whether it's your primary mortgage or a home equity line of credit, I can show you different methods in different disciplines to pay less interest over time. And that's the ultimate result is if you could, because if you pay the bank less interest, you've got more money to pay yourself.
Yes.
If that makes sense. So
yes, it does.
But that home equity line of credit is a way to access that equity. Number one, to prepare for that purchase, possibly to buy that first investment property, right?
Yeah.
To utilize to consolidate. I mean, there's so many different ways you can use the equity, but that's one way you can tap the equity. And again, if you don't use all the line of credit that you put in place, you're not paying it back, because you only pay back what you utilize of it. That's the nice thing about a home equity line of credit. It gives you the flexibility and a little bit of that financial freedom, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So can I interpret that to say that so the home is standing as a guarantor that I'm gonna pay back the debt, and then I'm given a line of credit like $50,000, like go use some of it, but we have the trust that you pay back based on your home.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, and like when we use that home equity line of credit on your primary residence,
Mm-hmm.
to help you position yourself to purchase that investment property. Essentially, what you're doing is you want to look at it as you're just using another property to obtain more financing for that purchase, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to the numbers crunching and what doesn't make sense for us, what we really want to do is look at how much does the investment property loan cost, right? And how much is it
Mhm.
going to cost me per month? Plus, how much is the home equity line of credit going to cost us? Because that's that total, those two payments together, you want to put into your calculation as to whether or not this investment makes sense for you.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways, but Sean, I'd be more than happy to show you and again help you prepare. Sometimes that preparation, it is getting as much education as you can up front before you put it in
Mhm.
place. And for example, I've got I do primarily first mortgage transactions, okay, or primary mortgages. But I've also been in the Chicago market for about 22 years, and I have bank contacts and credit union contacts for line of credits that I think are some of the most competitive products in the market. So once you establish the plan, I can open doors for you and be a resource for you to get the right product to put in place to meet your plan, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Awesome. Gina, did you have any more questions? Okay, I think she was.
Hello. Yeah, I was on mute.
Yes.
So, I was just looking for opportunities to learn my best options in my financial situation. So I'm glad you mentioned getting out of debt because that was one of my primary reasons too. Because I keep hearing about home equity, using your home equity, and I didn't want to just jump into it without having the right resources and the right education. So I just been keeping my eyes open lately, and I came across this on Eventbrite actually, and I was so surprised. But yeah, I just want some guidance because I'm in a little bit of debt. I'm coming out of a relationship, and now I have the house, and I want to pay my debt off and see what other opportunities I could find to maximize my potential for the home equity. And possibly my company just offered me a severance package. So I want to see, um, I have like a month, 30 days to decide. It's a voluntary program they're offering me to leave. So I just want to see if I could reinvest the money and be able to stay on my feet and replace this corporate job and fire my boss.
and fire your boss, right?
Yeah.
Well, in Gina, I will tell you this is kind of I'm in the mortgage business. Obviously, I've been in the mortgage business, but this is kind of how I've separated myself in the industry and built my reputation is teaching people how and giving that education how to utilize the power of what you have in real estate, right? To use that as a tool to get yourself in a position to do more. So the biggest thing I would tell you is you truly want a very specific plan. You want to get a lot of education because one of the things that I see people do is use their home's equity to get themselves out of debt, but then they don't change their way,
Right, and go back in the debt. I don't
And
want to
then
be
they,
worse
and
off
then they
than what
go,
I am.
and then they go back, and then all of a sudden, like, and then they'll call me can we do this again? I'm like, well, we already used the equity, right? So that's my biggest thing is, let's focus first on the education and the right plan. And then that way you'll get the nuggets as to what direction that you want to go that's going to make the most sense for you financially. And
Right.
and Gina, that's what I really focus on, is the education piece and helping you understand what is the best direction to go.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Do you
think,
do one-on-one consultations or?
Absolutely, 100% I do. And tonight is a real, obviously broad stroke, broad overview. It's kind of like I said, that 30,000-foot view. And hopefully you guys got a few good little nuggets, but I'd be more than happy to kind of dive in with each one of you guys individually to really help you guys develop the right plan as to what steps do we take next. Because the biggest thing about this finance world is, yes, there's very general stuff, but a lot of it has to do in what you qualify for and the interest rates and what's available to you. It has to do with your own scenario. It has to do with your credit, your income, and your personal profile as to what the end result is. So I'd be more than happy to set up an individual time with both of you guys.
and
Okay,
Gina,
great. 'Cause I did
we'll
miss
be
the first
sending-
part
we'll be
because my
uh,
phone, I couldn't connect to the meeting. So my son was so helpful and he figured I got on from a computer instead of my Android. He says Android, that's why. So yeah, I would like to learn what you had discussed in the beginning of this
Yeah,
meeting.
Gina, we'll send you a recording. We'll send you a copy of the recording, this
Okay.
week. And then it'll have the information, Karth's information on how to contact him and how to set up an appointment with him. And then, I wanted to congratulate you too on looking for the information before you make a decision. Sometimes
Yes.
we
Right.
kind of jump into decisions without really getting all the information that we need. And there is really so much information out there for you. So thank you for checking on that. And I think Karth is
Yeah.
the best person for that right now. He's like we said in the beginning, and you might have missed it. That's his specialty, just financial education. And that's part of the lesson that he gave in the beginning part.
Mm.
But also, as he was saying, there's so much more detail and there's so much more that he can go into, especially when he sits one-on-one with you and talks about your specific situation. Same thing with you, Sean, as you're, you and Evelyn are exploring, get an appointment with Karth, you and Evelyn, and sit down and see what the possibilities are for the HELOC and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll jump in with the helping you get in the building, doing numbers to make sure that the numbers work and
Mhm.
getting you that big investment that will move you in the direction of building equity,
Mhm.
better your family.
Mhm. Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
Karth, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for answering the questions and for just being available, and even for these one-on-ones that you're available to help out. And we appreciate you. We enjoy working with you, and we look forward to maybe having some more of these workshops.
Well, and absolutely, and I want to say thank you guys for inviting me on this. I love working with the two of you as well, and together as a team, we can help both you, Gina, and Sean really kind of come up with a very strategic plan to move to the next step.
Mhm.
So you're also doing a good job of creating the right A team around you to get to that next step to get to your goals. So thank you guys for letting me be
You.
here.
Right. Well, thank you again,
Thank you.
Gina and Sean, for joining us, and have a good night.
Have a good evening.
Yeah. Thank
All
you,
right, everyone, have
sir.
a good night.
Yeah, you guys
Bye.
have a good night, and then we'll send out information and
Information.
we'll set up individual times from there. So.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
Right.
you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Awesome. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Good night.
Night.
Good night.